What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Third and 10 podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Nguyen. It's kind of weird, as you can tell. Usually, when you guys are watching this episode, you usually see me and Coach Wilson. Unfortunately, there was some technical difficulties after going through the recording because we do pre-record it, but we post it onto YouTube. There was some issues with the audio and the video, and we had to make some adjustments. So this is probably the only time this will happen. Um, as me and Coach discussed to you guys throughout the series so far, we are still trying to grow, trying to have fun with this thing. And it's always a blessing, first off, to talk to Coach Wilson. He has an outstanding mind. He knows ball like no one other that I know. And it's a joy to talk to him every single week to talk about the University of Colorado, the Dallas Cowboys, the NCAA atmosphere as a whole, and just pick his brain. So this week, we talked about the University of Colorado and their recent win this past weekend. And we also discussed the Dallas Cowboys and how they lost to the Ravens last Sunday. And by the time you're seeing this, it is going to be Saturday. So it's a bit late, but like I said, we appreciate you guys for the patience and just hanging with us. And this is probably the only time you'll see this intro. But I just want to have a disclaimer that, well, you guys know what's going on. So when this episode starts, you'll see Coach Wilson talk about the Colorado play that happened last weekend against the University of Baylor. If you guys don't know, the Buffaloes did pull off a overtime win over the Baylor Bears in their Big 12 opener at home. It was an outstanding game. It came down to the wire. You'll see a clip of it, of the final play of regulation, I should say, and then you'll see the overtime play that kind of just sealed everything for the Buffaloes. And then once that happens, once you see that clip, it'll transition to Coach talking about Shedeur Sanders and the Buffaloes as a whole. And then after that, we shift towards Coach's player spotlight, which got cut off just a bit. But Coach's spotlight this week was Cam Ward, who has done an outstanding job for the Hurricanes as they are ranked. They look like they're back. It's great to see Cam Ward quarterback the Hurricanes, and he's done an outstanding job. He's definitely a first-round quarterback, in my opinion. And after you listen to Coach talk about Cam Ward, you'll be convinced, too, that he will be probably the first quarterback off the board. And then after that, we'll talk about the Dallas Cowboys, talk about the NFL, talk about a lot more college football, and then kind of give you guys a preview of the Buffaloes game as they play UCF the same day that you're seeing this. So next week, you'll see me and Coach Wilson back again. We will fix the technical difficulties, but we appreciate you guys hanging with us. We thank you for your support. And so you'll see the clip of the Buffaloes play that tied the game up for them in regulation and the overtime play that sealed it. So I'll see you guys then.
All rushing from one side.
The Big 12 opener comes down to this play. Sanders gets the feet set toward the end zone for the game. It is caught by Wester, just like 1994. Into the second OT on first and goal. It's Richardson. Ball is out. Ball is out. Recovered and knocked out of the end zone.
So there we have it, right? We saw the Hail Mary, remarkable play by Shedeur Sanders, rolling out to his opposite side and really just heaving one downfield, finding LaJohntay Wester, who's an undersized receiver. Yeah. And they were smart in isolating Travis Hunter on the backside, which he drew that safety over. So they really had a one-on-one matchup. And LaJohntay Wester has really come up big in the last 2 weeks after a moderately slow start to begin the season. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I thought the game was over. Baylor had sacked Shedeur about 3 or 4 times in a row late in the fourth quarter, and the offensive line was just abysmal. Okay? So I'm already thinking, what are we going to talk about this week? Man, the media is going to come down on Coach Prime. Shedeur has been very streaky in this game, and Baylor is not even a great team. So there was a lot that I was processing. However, I got to say, when that throw happened, I was not surprised. There was something inside me. I don't know. It's like history repeating itself. I believe Colorado had a pretty historic Hail Mary in the 90s with Cordell Stewart. And it was ironic that LaJohntay Westerware, number 10, came down with it. And so it felt fairly nostalgic, which I thought was just phenomenal television. And I got to say that with everything going on in college football, there's no doubt about the fact that Colorado is by far the most intriguing team. Every time they play, it's like you're on the edge of your seat. It has a unique feel to it, which regardless of how good they are, that's an aura that Coach Prime brings to the program. Now, with that being said, what really happened here is Colorado is a very explosive team. They get chunk plays, but they are wildly inconsistent. However, in this game, and it could be due to the shortcomings with Baylor's offense, but they dominated time of possession. 36 minutes they had the ball compared to Baylor's 23. So that stood out to me quite a bit. They were wearing Baylor's defense down some. They were 8 of 18 on third downs. So that's pretty solid when push comes to shove and Shedeur has his back against the wall. That's when he comes up big, which is a key trait in quarterbacks when you're evaluating them. However, they were sacked 8 times, and that simply cannot happen. However, I will say, though, Baylor, to their credit, Dave Aranda being a defensive mastermind, was dialing up some exotic blitzes. And Shedeur picked up on it very quickly in the fact that, okay, they're going to blitz me. I'm just going to take off, and I'm going to go right up the middle, especially if he's getting man coverage downfield, and he did that. However, what I saw in the middle of the fourth quarter, they did a unique twist where the defensive end got off of his man's, kind of looped around and caught Shedeur the second he took off down the middle of the field. And I was like, okay, Dave Aranda really brought it. And then he started dialing up some 6 and some 7-man blitzes towards the end of the fourth quarter, which as a defensive coordinator, you have your money play. You have like that one blitz that you're going to bring in a critical situation. And so he's actually the only head coach in FBS football that is also the defensive play caller. And so you can really see here that in the heat of the game, it really turns into this matchup between the defensive coordinator and the quarterback, which defensive coordinator is the hardest thing to coach in all of football. So with that being said, though, man, the fact that Colorado was able to come up big down the stretch, LaJohntay West was starting to get rolling. Travis Hunter had another 100-yard game. And then most importantly, he had that Heisman moment. This was a big game for Colorado. And as I said the previous week, this was a must win for them. Now, before we talk about this UCF matchup going forward, this is what I think about Colorado at this point of the season after a 3-1 start, which is exactly where they should be. Some would say 4-0, but Nebraska is trending up, although they took a bad loss last week. They got to get Horn going, man. Horn's got to be more consistent within the game. They got to get him and Shepard going. They can't – now LaJohntay Wester has now established himself as number 2. Okay, and we saw in that game that Travis Hunter's load is starting to get managed a little bit, which is going to have to down the stretch, especially because he's so important on the defense. And the defense is not creating enough turnovers, and they're hurting Shiloh Sanders. So I think that he's more valuable to the team on the defensive side of the ball. But Mika Welsh is one of the running backs, and he had 2 touchdowns in the previous week, and they need to get him going a lot more. He appears to be the most productive one. Now, they need to create more turnovers. That's the biggest problem with them right now, is that the defense isn't coming up with big plays. They're bend but don't break. They're not bad per se. It's good if they stay off the field, but they just need more turnovers. Let up 16 sacks on the season. They got to fix that. And if they can get the run game going, that can take some pressure off of the passing game because they're such a pass-dominant team. And then lastly, while they are 44% converting on third down, which is a pretty solid number, they're 28% going for it on fourth down, and they go for it quite a bit because they have to. But they want to find themselves in a better situation where they don't have to go for it on fourth down all the time. That's what I find the biggest issue for them moving forward, is to really try to keep the defense off the field. They get flat in the middle of games, around like middle of the third quarter. More often than not, they start off slow. They really just have to play a full game of football. I don't think we've seen Colorado's best football yet. And Coach Prime has alluded to that a couple of times now, but this team still has room for growth. And that's what is intriguing to me. However, they got a big game coming up this week. UCF is explosive, and they play the same brand of football as the Colorado Buffaloes. However, they just do it a lot better, if I'm being totally honest with you. And so this is a real test. This is a conference game. And so we're going to see what they got. However, probably the signature win for Coach Prime and his stint at Colorado so far. And so this is definitely some good momentum that should have them continuing to build beyond, just this game, but just as a program moving forward.
Yeah. Once again for Colorado's, one thing that I didn't, I noticed was that running game. That once again, I know Welch had 2 touchdowns. However, as a whole, just 91 yards rushing. You can factor in the sacks all you want, but still, your best rusher was Isaiah Augustave with 12 carries for 41 yards. Not as impressive. I know Shedeur played a hell of a game. Over 340 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. But hey, we're already 4 weeks into the season. You got to take the pressure off him just a little bit. And that running game has to get going, like you mentioned, Coach Welch. Hopefully, being the most productive back so far, hopefully gets it going for the Buffaloes in the running game. But I tell you, Coach, every week I continue to get more impressed by Travis Hunter. We mentioned it before about how he's a Heisman candidate, and he's done it again offensively. 7 catches, 130. Shedeur clearly trusts him a lot now. But man, defensively, Coach, that fumble he caused, beautiful hit, his shoulder right into the ball carrier's arms, forced the ball out. Just an outstanding play from a guy that continues to impress every single week. Will his load go down as the season goes on? Probably, because he plays both sides. But when he's on the field, Coach, he's just absolutely incredible. And I don't know. And every week he continues to, be the front runner for being the first overall pick in the NFL draft next year because of the way he's playing.
Absolutely. And from the forced fumble, he's a great open field tackler.
Yeah.
He had the interception last week in a critical situation.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously he's just making big plays time after time. I'm just excited to see if he can continue to stretch and win the Heisman. I think that would just be remarkable, playing both sides of the ball. We haven't seen this since Charles Woodson, but at such a high clip with all the snaps. So, obviously we're beating a dead horse and just saying that Travis Hunter is unbelievable, but he continues to up it each week. And this week, it's never going to be more important because we're seeing them play an equally matched team. And that Big 12 is just really balanced.
Yeah.
And so this just makes for really good football. And it's interesting because I do think that the Big 10 and the Big 12 are the best TV products right now, and Fox has them both. I just feel like when I watch games on Fox, they're just far more compelling than watching the SEC on ESPN or CBS. I don't know if it's just the broadcasting, the branding, but I don't know. Big 12 football has a unique flavor to it this year, and I'm really liking what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I love Fox. Fox, I know one name, Gus Johnson. He always calls like the big noon games that start at like 12 p.m. Eastern time. I love when he's calling games. He just brings that energy and just knowledge to the game. I love him to death. So I think he has the game with Colorado and UCF. So definitely will be tuning in for that one. But otherwise, we'll get into UCF and Colorado later on the show, Coach, towards the end. But I do want to ask you real quick about Travis Hunter before we head on to our next topic. What more do you think Travis Hunter needs to do more to win the Heisman, or is he, as long as he keeps going at this rate, will he be okay?
Yeah, as long as he keeps going at this rate. And with Georgia right now, they're winning games. They've been in control for the most part throughout the season. However, I don't see them as being led by Carson Beck. I think that they're just a really good team. Quinn Ewers, obviously on the second best team right now, or some would argue the best. He's been out now, and he hasn't been the driving force of their success. Ohio State has a handful of different skill players that have been successful. They've been solid, but there hasn't been a dominant player. And so we tend to see the Heisman Trophy go to the best player on the best team more often than not. And I don't think that there is a player making a better case, even on the top teams, that would take away the spotlight from Travis Hunter. And they're getting a lot of primetime games right now. And so he's on the front of everyone's mind.
And he's done nothing but impress. So
yeah, absolutely. So as long as he just stays at the pace that he's on and doesn't get hurt, I see no world in which he doesn't win the Heisman Trophy, which would just be historic.
Yeah. I tell you what, though, if he plays a hell of a game against UCF, he has to be 100% in first place at the top because there's no other player at his level, playing both ways, performing like he is.
We got a guy
We
that
do.
is creeping up into the conversation. They haven't played anybody yet.
Yeah.
But he has dazzled when he has played. He has a very strong supporting cast, and he appears to have elevated that team in a conference that has been reconstructed that is more than winnable. So before I proceed, I will let you take it from here, and then we will go back to talking about this player.
And this means it's time for Coaches Players Spotlight.
And what makes him really intriguing, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but he actually declared for the NFL draft after that year at Washington State. About 10 days later, he decided that he was going to go back to Miami. But this is really the first time a guy manipulated the NIL rule in which before he signed with an agent, he wanted to weigh out his options and see how they would evaluate him. And they said he was the number 125th overall player, the number 12th rated quarterback. And of the quarterbacks that entered the transfer portal, he was the 5th ranked guy. Okay, so they were not too high on him. And as you see here, the quote, many questions about Ward, whether he can unlearn bad habits. He developed while playing for inconsistent rosters. And among quarterbacks with 300 dropbacks, he had the second worst fumble rate. And so there were some problems. However, he didn't win a lot of games, and he was almost like this diamond in the rough. But he went to a Miami team that had a ton of talent at the skill position. And so he said, I'm going to go to Miami. I think this is a solid roster. And this is what we got in 4 games so far at the University of Miami, and he has absolutely dazzled. Okay, playing University of Florida week 1, and Florida had some hype going into the season. Mm-hmm. Again, reverse pirouetting, scrambling to the opposite side, hits a guy back of the end zone. Right here, a testament to what you were saying. I mean, this guy is so nonchalant. I mean, look at him. He's just looking around. This can't even be real. Right here, he hits one of my favorite players in college football, a guy who I've worked with, Xavier Restrepo, the St. Thomas Aquinas product, finished at Deerfield Beach. And I just showed this clip to just show you how explosive this kid is. Watch here, if we see at the bottom of the screen, though, or the top of the screen, how he sets up that route. That's a really good route. And I want to talk about him more in the future because he has made a ton of plays for Cam Ward. Mm-hmm. Here again, scrambling, again, just buying himself some time. Remarkable play, unbelievable catch by Restrepo. Right here again, though, okay, we have this single safety, and he's going to read, okay, see what the safety does, and he's going to pull the trigger really quick. This is a difficult throw in a tight window, especially in the red zone. If a linebacker bails, this can get undercut very quickly. Impressive throw, bang, right in the spot. He makes it look really easy. Here, he just throws a 50-50 ball with tremendous touch. Big play. Here, Restrepo, back shoulder throw. Throwing his guys open. And him and Restrepo have tremendous chemistry. Mm-hmm. Here, cover 2, hole shot. That's a cover 2 killer. Puts the ball in the spot where only the receiver can catch it, and the guy's able to make a run. We have Restrepo again here on this wheel comeback. No, it's just a back shoulder throw, not a comeback, but hits a back shoulder. So far into the season now, we're 4-0, almost 1,500 yards passing, 14 touchdowns to just 2 interceptions, 72% completion percentage. And the big thing with Ward now, the big thing with Cam Ward now is that he goes under center. They're using tight ends. They have looked really impressive in this 4-game stretch so far. Now, he's running around, throwing off platform. And what fascinates me is that it's kind of similar to Shedeur Sanders off the fact that played at the FCS level and then didn't win a lot of games in year 1. And so he's an unknown. And this tells me that scouts aren't really doing their homework because he's putting the ball in really unique spots. He's dazzling. Now, the fumbles are concerning, but he has elite arm talent. There's no doubt about that. Now that he's in a better program that has prestige and he has them rising in a similar fashion to like what Joe Burrow did at LSU, where the quarterback is just elevating the entire game, it's hard to not make the case for if they win 9 or 10 games and they can go to the playoff, he's absolutely played himself into the first round. Now it's a matter of where. And so I think that him and Shador are going to be – they're the two best quarterbacks in this draft class. I'll tell you that right now. I don't even care if he loses 4 or 5 games. I've seen enough to say that if you put him in an NFL team with a decent O-line, he can be really successful. Jaden Daniels didn't win a whole bunch of games, but he dazzled on film last year. And we see where he got drafted. And he struggled at Arizona State. He had some highs and lows. One big year, and look how things changed for him. So the public perception can change very quickly. But looking at his body of work so far, I think that him and Shador Sanders are this new breed of quarterback where he's just cerebral and just understanding how to find the holes in the defense. And he's never fazed by pressure. He doesn't waste movement in the pocket. He pulls the trigger quickly, and he's actually a far more explosive runner than Shador. Mm-hmm. And so he's a guy that is going to have people's attention, especially as they play bigger games on prime time down the stretch. And so he is college football's best kept secret. And I believe that this is a guy that is going to be a first round pick and be a very good pro. So that is my take on Cam Ward. I believe that he has now arrived, and you are going to see him go from, again, the 125th overall prospect last year to now shooting up draft boards.
Mm-hmm. And not just for the University of Miami fans and the team itself, but I'm sure I am glad that he stayed back and didn't go for the draft completely, honestly. I mean, he's improved his stock so much so far throughout the season. I mean, 4-0 start. He has the second best QBR in college football with a 94.4. That speaks volumes as to how good he's been playing. Only sacked twice, so shout out to the offensive line for keeping him clean, and for Ward's, he knows how to play in the pocket and when to escape and when to stay in the pocket and stuff like that. He's on pace to beat his numbers from the past couple of years. Last year for Washington State, he had 23 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. He already has 14-2, respectively, throughout the first 4 games. So he's playing extremely well. I say it again, nonchalant man that he plays with, but honestly, it's not a bad thing. He just makes it look so effortlessly. He has a great team around him, but that doesn't, impact anything about him. He's just an amazing quarterback, and I'm so excited to see how far he can carry the University of Miami. Are they back? I really hope so, Coach. I really do hope. They have a great squad. Mario Cristobal has done a pretty solid job so far. He was criticized a lot heading into the season, but he's done nothing but do a really good job as a head coach. And it's all, most credit can go to Cam Ward, but the University of Miami off to an outstanding start, and we'll see how far they can go into the 2024 season as we continue to see Mr. Ward play at the level that he has been playing. So that was it for Coach's Player Spotlight. We'll dive into the college game in just a bit more later on. I ain't gonna lie. It's nice to see this team kind of struggle a little bit, I will say, as we shift to the NFL landscape, to the Dallas Cowboys, Coach. They had the game of the week this past weekend on Sunday against the Baltimore Ravens, and that was one game I had my eye on, I would say. Look, the Cowboys had a pretty bad performance. That may be an understatement against the New Orleans team that looked to be back before the Eagles humbled them this past weekend. But I thought they were going to bounce back. I thought they were going to bounce back against a Ravens team that has been, struggling their own. Their passing offense has not been the same. Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, those two guys have been struggling for Baltimore's offense. But Dallas's weakness heading into the year was the run game defense. And that really was exposed this past weekend because Derrick Henry had a heck of a game against that Cowboys defense. So the Cowboys run defense, Coach, they were exposed, and Derrick Henry had a heck of a game against them, over 100-plus yards rushing. Lamar Jackson had a hell of a game on the ground as well, Coach. I don't know what's going on. I mean, it's too early, obviously, to see Dallas struggle the way, usually they kind of fall off towards the end of the regular season. That they do really good to start the year, and then they kind of struggle towards the late part of the year. But they are 1-2. The defense as a whole, they don't look as good as we're used to seeing from them. So what is going on with the Cowboys? Because offensively, they're okay too. Because it's Dak and CD, and that's pretty much it. Because just like the Buffaloes, ironically, they don't have a run game either. What is going on with Dallas, coach? I mean, they just got pretty much the score doesn't reflect how they played on Sunday because they came back because Baltimore's defense and special teams couldn't get the job done. What happened to the Cowboys on Sunday?
Couple things. They had 19 points in the fourth quarter, so they did pick it up down the stretch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but let's not forget that this was a must-win game for the Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
We had talked about chill or no chill last week, and the Ravens are on the verge of having a panic off the fact that that's a good division.
Yeah.
Okay, so they needed this win, and they needed to get Derrick Henry going, and they did just that. Looking at the Cowboys, they've allowed 9 sacks in 3 games, okay? They're averaging 6.7 yards per attempt. They're not really throwing the ball downfield. They're a one-trick pony, and that is get the ball to CD Lamb by any means necessary. Now, Rico Dowdle, I cannot say his name for the life of me, okay? I am not a fan of him, and Jerry Jones came out and said that he was going to be the primary ball carrier. Well, he's averaging 3.8 yards a carry right now. The Cowboys are averaging 73 yards a rushing a game, and they've only scored 2 rushing touchdowns. Mm-hmm. That ain't going to work. They have a 0 touchdown interception ratio. They're not creating enough turnovers at all. Okay, they're averaging 187 yards a game on the ground on defense. Okay, they're averaging 29.7 points per game. Okay, the one bright spot that they have is that their kicker's 10 for 10 right now, whatever that's worth. Okay, and their average time of possession per game right now is 27 minutes, okay, which is about 6 to 7 minutes under where a team would want to be. So they're not even able to sustain drives, and they're just not controlling the ball at all. Now, I will say against the Saints, they got off to a slow start, but were better down the stretch. Now, what happens to the Cowboys is that if they get down early, it allows teams to exploit their weakness. They can't stop a nosebleed, right? Mm-hmm. But if they're able to get up and establish the run early, that's going to be their recipe for success. They have to play with the lead so that they can play to their secondary, which is their strength, and then they can start getting the play action game going. But Dak Prescott has had way too many attempts. We said that the previous week with Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson had 16 attempts in this game. Okay? So that puts in perspective what their recipe is for winning football. It's running the ball because it opens up the play action game. And Lamar Jackson also had 87 yards on the ground. Now, we're obviously talking about the Cowboys, but the fact of the matter is that for a long period of time, they were known for that offensive line. Well, they're averaging 73 yards on the ground, and Dak Prescott's been sacked 9 times in 3 games. Their offensive line sucks. Okay? There's no way around that. And they aren't running the ball, and they can't stop the run. So as far as I'm concerned, man, this is a recipe for disaster. They are not looking good. And
we're panicking.
We're panicking a little bit here because I don't see where they're going to get any more offensive production from unless Zeke begins becoming that primary ball carrier and they're going to start feeding him. Does he even have the capacity to take 25 carries a game and be productive? I don't know. And what's going on? Dalvin Cook, is he going to join the party? Still waiting to see. Don't think it'll matter, as I said before, but they got another running back who's shown the ability to be productive, so they might as well give him a chance. But if they can't get up on teams early, okay, and establish some sort of a run game, this one's going to get away from them very quickly. And Dak Prescott has improved, and he's not the problem right now, might I add. But I think losing Dalton Schultz hurt them. Okay, they don't really have anyone at that tight end spot. And they've always been a team that leaned on the tight end, getting a lot of production. I think Ferguson's been out as well. He's a solid player, not great. But Brandon Cooks has been inconsistent. And so where are they going with this at this point? Which leads me into their matchup this week against your New York Giants. And so talk about the Cowboys moving forward. Well, they're playing a team who is identical to them, but worse. Giants are averaging 15 points per game. Okay, they average 189 yards per game in total offense, which is just terrible. Daniel Jones has been sacked 8 times already, not playing well. They are averaging excuse me. While they are averaging 105 yards per game rushing, which is solid, Singletary's gotten rolling a little bit. They're averaging 5.7 yards per attempt passing the ball. So they're trying to just dink and dunk, which is really just a testament to the fact that Daniel Jones is god-awful. So we can lock in the fact that the New York Giants are going to be drafting a quarterback. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I guess you're in the Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders sweepstakes, but I digress. What I anticipate from this game this week is that it's going to be a low-scoring game because both teams lack firepower. The Giants, if they can get up earlier, get Singletary going, though, because the Cowboys can't stop a nosebleed, that appears to be a strength that the Giants have against a major flaw the Cowboys have. So we do see some opportunities for the Giants to potentially get rolling. And Malik Neighbors has been a bright spot, okay? 2 touchdowns last week. And I said it before, I'll say it again, I expect him to be Rookie of the Year. But if the Cowboys can put pressure on Daniel Jones early, which the Giants' O-line is struggling, and the Cowboys do have guys that can get after the passer, and they try to force Daniel Jones to beat them, and the Cowboys can establish a little bit of a run game, I see the Cowboys winning this game by 7 to 10 points. Mm-hmm. For sure. It'll be fairly close because I don't think either offense is explosive, but neither team is particularly good. And looking at the personnel and evaluating the numbers, I don't see much changing. I think this is who both of these teams are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I fully expect Dallas to win this game too, as much as it hurts me to say it, because the Cowboys have not only always had the Giants number, but it's just, Daniel Jones, he has struggled against the Cowboys throughout his whole career, whether it's the Eagles or the Cowboys or just top teams in the NFL as a whole. He's never been the guy to step up and lead the team to a victory. You mentioned the 5 yards per attempt. Even though it's nice to see, or nice to have seen the Giants win on Sunday against the Browns, it's pretty much Malik Neighbors. Malik is making them look good, which is fine. Like, I'm not complaining about that, but we gotta, throw the deep ball. Throw the ball down the field. This is what I'm tired of seeing. I hate seeing dink and dunks, coach. I hate seeing that. There's a time and place for that, obviously, in a football game, but I love deep plays down the field, and the Giants don't have a quarterback that can do that. So, for this Cowboys team, because I don't want to dive into the Giants because this is not a Giants segment at all, if they don't establish the run at all against the Giants defense that, like, they did pretty well against Cleveland on Sunday, they're going to lose. I don't care.
I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
Oh, no, I was going to say, I don't care how talent deficient people think the Giants are. The Cowboys offense, if it's not Dak and CeeDee, they're not going to get anything done. Like, it's going to be an ugly kicker matchup between Brandon Aubrey and Greg Joseph of the Giants, and no one's going to want to see that, nor do both offenses want to see that either. But it may come down to that because Dallas's offense looks like crap because they can't run the football. Dowdle is their leading rusher through 3 games, and he has 88 yards rushing. Are you kidding me? Zeke, we thought he was back, coach. We thought he was back. He lost weight. These past couple of games, he stunk up the joint.
But they got down early. And so when you get down early, you abandon the run games. You have to put that in perspective. Yeah. So they're rallying, so they have to throw a high volume of passes to get back in the game. And Dak Prescott is effective. It's just that they're getting down too quickly, so they become one-dimensional. And then their opponent can run the ball on them, and they can't stop the run. So it's really just like it's an equation here. Get up early. You got to score. You got to get aggressive early so that you can now, get more creative with your play calling. But the Cowboys can score points, and they've shown that. But they're playing teams that have better offenses. And so if you want to get into a shootout, but the opposing team can run the ball, playing Alvin Kamara and Derrick Henry back-to-back weeks, that's not the position you want to find yourself. And this is the first time in Dak Prescott's career where the O-line is failing him, and he doesn't have a run game to lean on. So we can't necessarily say we don't have enough supporting details yet to say that Ezekiel Elliott is not back or he's washed. Or even that, no, Rico Dowdle, 3.8 yards attempt. That's not good, or per carry, rather. That's not effective at all. So they got to get him out of there, okay, regardless of how we're talking about the O-line. But they have to commit to running the ball early so that it'll open things up down the road, and they got to get early scores and create turnovers. You know what I mean? So it's a ripple effect. And it's interesting as we break this down, as we're able to see how different phases of the game correspond with one another. And so it might not necessarily be that a team has a flaw, but teams are playing up on the Cowboys, and so they're just going to continue to run the ball. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it just puts them in bad positions. And so, as I said before, getting off to a hot start, establishing the run game, and trying to play with the lead so that the opposing team can't run down their throat is going to be their recipe for success.
27.6, 54.6, and 52.6. Why are those numbers relevant? That's been Dak Prescott's QBR the past 3 games. Not what you want from a guy that you just paid big bucks to be your franchise quarterback for the future. But hey, look, not to always be negative, because that's not who I am, and I respect all teams in the NFL. If the Cowboys are going to bounce back, Coach, it's this Thursday, because Devin Singletary is not Derrick Henry and Alvin Kamara, no matter how much you would put it. He's a good player, but he's not to that level. So if the Cowboys defense wants to show that they're back, take care of business against the Giants. If they don't, then we're going to be sitting here next week in full panic mode, because you can't even beat the Giants. I'm just saying. There might be some panic going on here at the coach's corner next week.
Shout out to Devin Singletary, though, okay?
100%. I love him.
It's his 3rd team now. I think he's had a pretty good career.
Yeah.
Okay, undersized back at a FAU. I've worked with him before. Know where he comes from. Okay, he is amazing. He's an overachiever, to say the least. And the fact that he's now the Giants' primary back is great to see.
Yeah.
And he's probably one of the few bright spots that they have.
Yeah.
And so they can ride him, and he can end up with 1,000 yards and maybe being a Pro Bowl back. And so I just like to see that for the play. I mean, that's the one thing they got rolling. So I will just, shout out to Devin Singletary, good player.
Him and Malik Neighbors have been bright spots for this Giants offense. And I mean, so far through 3 games, Singletary 2 touchdowns, tied for 10th most in the league, 197 rushing yards throughout so far. That's 15th best in the league as well, 4.7 yards per carry. So about average or so in the league, and had a great game on Sunday against the Browns, 16 carries, 65 yards, and a touchdown as well. So hopefully he has another good game against Dallas and help take the load off Daniel Jones's shoulders a little bit, even though, let's be honest, we shouldn't say that, because Jones needs to perform. But I digress. Please, Giants, for me, win. But for this segment, I guess let's hopefully see Dallas pull it off against the Giants team, which they should. Dalvin Cook will not play tomorrow for the Cowboys, or today, as you guys are seeing this, for Dallas. So expect Rico Dowdle to be on the field, and Ezekiel Elliott, I guess. Whatever. All right. It is time. This was fun last week. I was excited to do this last week, and we'll bring it back again, Coach. It's time for Chill or No Chill. No sponsor. We'll work on that. I promise. All right, Coach, I got three teams/players that I got to know. Should we chill or should we panic a little bit about them? Is that okay with you?
Let's roll, baby.
Let's do it, Coach. First team, who the Giants just beat on Sunday, the Cleveland Browns. Because, look, Coach, Deshaun Watson jokes aside, he's been bad. The whole Browns team has been bad. Look, they got blown out by Dallas in week 1. They barely beat Jacksonville by 5 points, which, by the way, we saw them get blown out in Jacksonville on Monday night, which is embarrassing. Then they lose to the Giants. This Browns team, I know, doesn't have Nick Chubb, but they do have Jerry Jeudy, who they got as in the offseason. Yet this Browns team does not look the same. They're 1-2. Should we be panicking, or should we calm the F down?
We got to panic a little bit here. David Njoku, great player. Amari Cooper, another good player. Deshaun Watson's got weapons. Kevin Stefanski's a guy that wants to run the ball. He's a great play caller, good coach for sure. Okay, coach of the year last year, I believe, as well.
Correct.
That defense was phenomenal too. However, they're throwing the ball a lot. They haven't been particularly effective, and not having Nick Chubb hurts them quite a bit. So the fact that they don't have an effective passing game, the running game has been non-existent, and the defense is just on the field a lot. And that's really what it boils down to. Just like we're talking about the Cowboys and the Giants, like we see a similar, pattern here in regards to a recipe for losing football. Okay, being one-dimensional offensively, being predictable in third down situations, not being able to stop the run, which is generally a byproduct from the defense being on the field too much, and just poor quarterback play. Deshaun Watson has not looked the same in 3 years, and I think it's time to draw the line in the sand and saying, I've seen enough.
Yeah.
They paid him. They gave up draft capital to get him. They moved off Baker Mayfield, some would say, too soon. 1 and 2, we've been waiting for the Browns to break out for a really long time. They got plenty of weapons. What the hell? I'm running out of excuses, mate. I don't know what to tell you.
Could I ask a bonus question? Do you feel like Watson's teammates do not respect him?
They spoke really highly about Deshaun Watson at Clemson. They said that he was the heart and soul of that program, resilient young man coming from a single-parent household. I heard people raving about his leadership skills. And with Bill O'Brien and the Houston organization that he inherited, they were fairly dysfunctional. And he seemed to be like that one thing that was keeping him afloat. I would argue that, Deshaun Watson's first couple of years, comparing him to Patrick Mahomes, I would argue that he was doing more with less.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Deshaun Watson. I would say that he was the most underrated quarterback in the league.
Yeah.
He was dazzling.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if it's the fact that he got his bag or the injuries. Maybe the injuries just add up. He had a lot of wear and tear on his body. Those are some things that people don't know behind the scenes. Maybe just not the same.
Yeah.
I don't know. But the excuses are running out. And the fact of the matter is, when you're getting paid and he hasn't been available and now he's not performing, regardless of how he interacts with his teammates, probably rubbing some people the wrong way. And when they have other quarterbacks in the building who display better leadership skills or who may be more talented. And so it leads many to wonder, okay, perhaps, and they moved off Joe Flacco. They could have ran it back with Joe Flacco.
They could have.
There have been 4 other quarterbacks in the building that could have been QB1 for the Browns, and they still could have been an effective team. All this to say, there's a lot of pressure on Deshaun Watson. And in 3 games so far, he has not performed. And so, yeah, if I was a player on that team, I'd just be sick of him.
Yeah, me too. And not just because of his on the field stuff, but also off the field. We don't have the whole drama there, and maybe that's taking up a lot of attention from Watson per se. But if he doesn't step up, there's 2 other quarterbacks waiting, like you said, Coach. We got Jameis Winston, who can be a bit crazy at times, but he can sling it with the best of them. He slings it. Like if you want a guy that can throw the deep ball, it may not get to the receiver, like it may get picked off, but he's a great teammate. He can throw the ball. I respect him as well. Great leader, by the way, Winston is. And then you have Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who is unlikely to start unless injuries happen. But when out there, and especially in the preseason, he played pretty well. Also,
he's a carbon copy of Kyler Murray.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yep. There we go. That's a great comparison. I love that one. So Watson, he better look over his shoulder, man, because 2 more games of like he did against the Giants.
He's out of there.
Out of there. Get him out. Put Winston 100%. In. You got to save this. You got to save this season before it's too late. If you're Kevin Stefanski and the Browns front office and coaching staff,
no doubt.
And that might mean benching a guy that you just mentioned, Coach. You guys traded a lot for. You paid for. So far, it's not working out. Another quarterback that's been struggling a little bit, and the team I had high expectations for as well, is the Tennessee Titans. I don't want to dive into the Titans too much as a whole. It's more towards that one player, which is Will Levis, Coach. I had high hopes. I mean, You bring in Brian Callahan. He was a hell of an offensive coordinator. Win Cincinnati, helped Joe Burrow with his development. Comes to Tennessee. I'm thinking, okay, you got Callahan, you got Pollard and Spears in the backfield, two elusive backs. You have DeAndre Hopkins. You got Calvin Ridley. You got Tyler Boyd. You have a pretty young, underrated tight end in Okonkwo, and an offensive line that's pretty good. And they drafted J.C. Latham with the 7th overall pick in this past draft. I'm thinking, hey, this Titans team, we got something here. And
they're a quarterback away.
Yeah, I thought Levis was the guy to lead them, this season. No,
Never. I never thought that.
And why is that, Coach? Because there's evidence to support your point. Because I'm completely wrong so far this season.
He couldn't beat out Sean Clifford at Penn State. Sean Clifford's now back up on the Packers. He might be on the practice squad, actually, because Malik Willis just took his job. Ironically enough, because Will Levis took Malik Willis's job. Okay. Will Levis is one of those quarterbacks similar to like the Drake Mays, the Mitch Trubisky's, the Blaine Gabberts, the Blake Bortles, 1 year of college production. And he couldn't win the job at Penn State, and he transferred. Played 1 year at Kentucky, and he's a guy with a strong arm, very similar to Zach Wilson, off of like super strong arm, pretty good athleticism. Will Levis looks a little unhinged. Some character issues. There was some speculation. There's some stuff coming up about him. Don't have a reference point off the top. I believe there were some issues that teams were concerned with. One. And then the second thing, his decision making. Mm-hmm. He's so careless with the football. I think that's a testament to the fact that he just hasn't played a lot of snaps. Mm-hmm. 1 year of production, and he wasn't wildly successful at Kentucky. He had some bright spots. They did do well. But all things considered, he's a developmental player. But when you test off the charts, you have a strong arm. He looks the spot. It deceives NFL scouts. And then he came in the middle of last year with a roster that's pretty good. The Titans have been pretty competitive for the last couple of years now. And so he was positioned to succeed, and he showed some bright spots. And so they put all the chips in on him. And I believe now he's just being exposed. He's the problem. The careless decision-making, I think that his arm talent and his athletic ability is a little bit of a detriment. He's just not particularly disciplined with his reads, and then again careless with the football. And his athletic ability is good but not elite, so he can't escape from those linebackers. So you start sending skilled players blitzing from the second level, and it's just hard for him. It's like, what's the X factor in his game? And he's not a guy that is winning at the line of scrimmage. That takes years. And I would want to see at least a 3-year starter in college to maybe come in at the pro ranks and be able to take command of an offense. In a similar fashion to Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams just played a lot of football. Joe Burrow played a lot of football. Actually, no, well, Joe Burrow sat, but he had a dominant year at LSU. He was in a college program for a while in which he could come in day one and take command. And so that's a trend that we're now seeing, in which if a guy takes a lot of snaps in his competitive 40-some games under his belt, as we're seeing like Bo Nix, who had his first big week, Will Levis is just inexperienced. And so I think that if he sat, he might not be broken per se, but he's a developmental player. But because he has tremendous measurables and he might be able to win an interview, he deceived the Titans into drafting him early. And there's nothing wrong with drafting quarterbacks in the second round. If you have a surplus of second round picks and there's a decent quarterback, take one every year. Make him compete. Sure. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not mad about that. But Will Levis is the problem with drafting quarterbacks these days, is that you're not diving into the weeds into who he is. You're just letting his arm talent, his athletic ability really draw your attention. And this is the men's league, and that ain't gonna fly.
They should have won week 1 against Chicago, and Levis's decision making. I understand it. Not to make a joke, but I know in NCAA Football 25 when I'm playing, I hate taking sacks, so I'll just force throws. Just try to like make a play. But at the same time, I understand that there is in both scenarios, whether in real life or in the virtual world, there's going to be times where you have to take a sack. And Levis, we have seen so far through the first 3 games that he wants to, kind of force things. or kind of just be careless with the football per se, to be more exact. We've seen that where he's about to get sacked, but he like throws it like this, and it's like, no, just hold on to it. Let's just fight another down, punt the ball away, whatever the case may be. But so far through the first 3 games, he's been just not good, and Titans don't look good at all. For a team that I had high hopes for with great defense, and all we needed was Levis to perform for this Titans offense, and unfortunately, this has not been the case. So if they continue to play like this, it's not like they have a backup plan at all. It's Mason Rudolph, and no one wants to see Mason Rudolph on the football field whatsoever. Personally, I feel the Titans made a mistake trading away Malik Willis. I don't know. I'm just saying Malik would have probably operated his offense a lot better than Levis.
That goes to show you, though, Nate, that Malik Willis has sat for some time. Matt LaFleur is a very good coach.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that Malik Willis, who's also a developmental quarterback to a certain degree, that guy's going to need some time. You put him in the right infrastructure. You can run the ball, simplify his read, give him some support, and a quarterback can be successful. I mean, these guys are pros. It's about how they're being developed and what's going on in the building. And if there's a good offensive-minded coach or a good coordinator that can wrap their arms around them and make their job easier, that's a big part of it. That's why guys are successful. Again, we're seeing what's going on in Carolina. They had Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield. You see what I'm saying? Look at those 2 guys now. And so bad organization, not developing players properly, and we're seeing the result.
And it's like the Titans have guys around Levis. They have 2 wide receiver number 1s in Hopkins and Ridley. You look at Green Bay, there's no leading receiver, yet LaFleur is such an outstanding coach. I give huge props to him. There's great skill players around Willis in Green Bay, like Josh Jacobs, like an Emmanuel Wilson, who's stepped up as an RB2. Jaden Reed is such a great gadget guy. He can catch the football, hand off on reverses or anything like that. Just the Packers team
Watson
with
too.
Christian Watson, of course. Dobbs and to an extent, but they'll pick it up eventually down the line. But for the Packers, not to add on to this segment, but for this Packers team that we thought were going to be screwed once Jordan Love went down, they've been doing just fine. And it's great to see LaFleur have success with Malik Willis, who
they're going to make a run.
That's what I'm thinking. Malik Willis is one of my favorite quarterbacks. I wanted him as a Giants fan because I saw what he had potential-wise. He can throw it. He can run it. You got to put him in the right system, and he's finding his home in Green Bay, and he's holding it down for Jordan Love until he comes back. Finally, real quick before we head off to the game of the week, Coach, and kind of wrap things up for the show, Brendan Ayuk, just real quick. He got paid legit like a week before the regular season started. Well, that money looks like it's wasted. I think so, because the first 3 games he hasn't looked the same. Like, he doesn't look like the receiver that we saw from last year. He got his bag and all of a sudden wants to play like crap. So should we be panicking or no?
Slow down.
Okay.
Slow down. I say that he wasn't in camp. He hasn't played. He's out of shape. You know that they've put GPSs on players with the catapult technology, and receivers run anywhere between 5 to 12 miles in a practice. Okay, receivers run a lot. The dude doesn't have his legs underneath him. Okay, you take that into account. Also, the fact that teams now have over 20 games on Brock Purdy. They now know what they're dealing with. He's not a mystery anymore. And the 49ers have a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover, and teams don't have to key for Christian McCaffrey. So what's that doing? That's putting more stress on the passing game. Brock Purdy's throwing a high volume of passes. They are out of rhythm. This is not how the 49ers want to play. And so Brandon Ayuk is great off of the fact that he's like option 3 or 4 for that in regards to who's going to get their touches between McCaffrey and Samuel and Kittle and even Jukic. He's a great player, might I add. He is a coach player, okay? But Brandon Ayuk is great because he blocks well. He's good after the catch. He runs great routes. He does everything good, nothing elite, but he's very reliable. But it's kind of hard for a guy, because granted, he has wide receiver 1 production as first team All-Pro last year. However, he's reaping the benefits of that system in which they need that X receiver to produce, and so he's set up to succeed. I believe that Ricky Pearsall, after a year in that system sitting, he will be able to produce off of his skill set and how he fits into that offense. I think Brandon Ayuk is very replaceable. I think that the 49ers can put a handful of different guys throughout the league in that spot that will give you equal production. I don't think that takes away from the fact that Ayuk does a lot of things well, but he does nothing great to me. But with that being said, I think that the 49ers are just in a tough spot. They've been really good for about the last 5 years with Lynch and Shanahan. And those guys have been ready to win 2 Super Bowl appearances. And so it's like the Ravens. These early games, it just gets tough. And no McCaffrey and no camp for Ayuk. And so, just give it some time. I'm not going to write them off because they're a well-run organization.
Yeah.
But I do think that the hangover is starting to linger. And so you're just seeing them plummet a little bit on all cylinders. And I think that's normal. But I think that they're going to get it rolling. I wouldn't worry about him. About 5 or 6 games in, he's going to get rolling.
Yeah, I mean, this past Sunday, they didn't have Debo, they didn't have George Kittle, so that just makes things even tougher for that Niners offense on Sunday. And this week, they may not have those 2 again. Debo is doubtful. Kittle is questionable. He was limited on Wednesday's practice. Trent Williams is also questionable as well for the 49ers. So
we got to move off Debo Samuel. Debo Samuel has done nothing in 2 years. I'll just say, he was known as a marquee player. From the second they've got Christian McCaffrey, I'm over Debo Samuel.
Things change. Yeah, things change.
He's always hurt. He doesn't get a high volume of carries anymore. He hasn't shown an ability to win on the outside. He's not a slot machine. He's a glorified gadget player. I'm off of him.
Mm-hmm. I've always been, not to always agree with you with everything, Coach, but for me, I've never liked Debo. I feel like if they could go back in time and choose between paying Debo and paying Ayuk, I would still got Ayuk, even though I have my feelings about Ayuk right now. Debo just when you get CMC and you take away what Debo is, which is like a running back receiver hybrid that you can hand the ball off to or catch the ball at the backfield and stuff like that. Hey, so far this year, 0 touchdowns, 164 yards receiving, always hurt, never played a full season since 2021. That was his breakout year. Ooh, SF. It don't look like they have struggles, Coach, in San Francisco, but they do have struggles, believe it or not, and we'll see if that affects them. They play, I believe, the Patriots this upcoming Sunday, so we'll see what happens there. All right, game of the week. We don't have one really, but it's Colorado UCF basically because that's our boys, Coach. So back to the college game here. Can the Buffaloes defeat UCF? And how can they do it, Coach? Because if they win this one, they're in business.
Like I talked about Dave Aranda last week, he's a guy that I studied extensively when I was a defensive coordinator. I love Gus Malzahn, the head coach of UCF. The things that he was doing at Auburn, he was the OC with Gene Chizik when they won the national championship with Cam Newton. And then with the Nick Marshall team, with the Kick Six, he brought them to the national championship. He is an offensive mastermind that came from the high school game, and he has this really simplistic system. And while they do spread the ball out, he is committed to running. UCF is averaging 375 yards on the ground per game right now. Their quarterback is averaging 9.6 yards an attempt. KJ Jefferson, who is a transfer from Arkansas, who's played a lot of football. He's been really effective, 63% completion percentage. They are 57% converting on third down. They've only been sacked 3 times. They are the total opposite of Colorado. They have long drives. They can come through on third down. They can run the ball on demand, and they have an effective quarterback. And they got a receiver who goes by the name of Kobe Hudson, number 2. I watched them play 2 weeks ago against TCU, and he was just winning matchup after matchup. That was a thriller. I actually shot you a text. I was like, UCF, TCU is a thriller right now. By the way, I do want to say UCF can't play a lick of defense, okay? They don't play any defense. But with that being said, they have a lot of penalties as well. They lack discipline. Colorado has a ton of penalties too. But I will say that these teams are fairly identical off the fact that they are explosive offenses. UCF more on the running side, Colorado obviously more on the passing side, but they live in a spread. Okay, you're going to see them in the gun 98% of the time, both teams. And so it's really just a matter of who can dominate time of possession and put stress on the other team's defense. Okay, the defense that's on the field more is going to lose. That's how I look at this game. But all things considered, UCF is a better team. They're a much better team offensively, and they've been more effective. Granted, they've played UNH and Sam Houston State. Those are not particularly good schools. I mean, they're both FCS schools. So I mean, come on now. However, TCU was a big game. TCU is improved from last year, but this is going to be the first real matchup for them in obviously conference play, and so this is going to be a great game. I think that we have evenly matched teams, but Colorado is facing. It's almost like they're facing a mirror image of themselves, and so it's going to be interesting to see where it's just going to be a lot of offensive football. I see a game 54-45. I will say, if this is going to be another one of those games, like I said, it was a must-win. This isn't a must-win because they could lose this game. But if they do win this game, because UCF is a good team, we still don't necessarily know about Colorado, although they are displaying some resilience, which is good, and I like to see that. And they probably have the two best players in college football. I will reiterate that over and over again. But UCF has just a lot of firepower offensively, and they just appear to be a more balanced team that is better in situations. And so all things considered, it would be an impressive win. It wouldn't be an upset by any means, but UCF is favored to win. Actually, in Vegas, they have them by 14. With my algorithm, which I'll talk about at the post-game speech here, I have them favored by 10, and I just find them to be a better overall team, unfortunately.
When you're running the ball better than Navy and Army, who, as much as I don't like watching it, it is still appealing that they run the ball so much. 375 yards rushing per game is absolutely insane. Like, man, like, I know they throw it not as much. I mean, 195 yards passing is not that impressive at all, especially from any team in general. But when you're running the ball that well, who needs throwing the football? Just run. Coach, you love running the ball, right? You love the rushing game. It's like, who needs the passing game?
They take shots, though, too. They throw downfield when they throw downfield. 9.6 yards an attempt is a lot. And Kobe Hudson is a monster. Okay, he's a very good receiver. And so they're always spreading you out. And so you're going to get two high safety looks, which means that you're going to get a light box. And so Gus Malzahn is like the king of numbers, okay? Two high safeties are running. Okay, we're going to flank you out. They'll even put the receivers really far outside of the hashes, which pull the linebackers in the overhangs, which just give you more space
to run.
They call it like spread and shred, okay, like a power spread offense. And then they do use an H-back from time to time, so they get like that fullback, tight end hybrid of like that run game where you're doing a lot of split zone stuff. So they have like a power run game from a spread offense. It's just a really unique philosophy, and they play with a ton of tempo. And so like first down, and they're just going to run no huddle. And so they just wear you down. Teams try to do this, but Gus Malzahn is the architect of this system. And so he just runs it to perfection. So, I mean, he's a guy, granted, if he can get some defense, he'll be successful. But he's a guy that any team he's coaching is always going to be in the top 20 on running football, no doubt.
Do we expect Travis Hunter and Shadur to have a big game offensively, Coach?
Oh, for sure, no doubt. But they need to get Shepard and Horn going as well if they really want to win this game. If they can all get rolling, that'll be tough to stop.
Okay. Run game, same. Should we expect the same from Colorado in terms of production wise, or will they turn it up in this one?
This is going to be an opportunity for them to get the run game going early. UCF doesn't stop the run particularly well. I think that they should ride Miko Welsh a little more as well. So we'll see if they can get that part of the game going.
All right, we'll see what happens. So I'm definitely watching that one. So excited for that one, Coach. I know you are too. For UCF in Colorado. All right, gather around once again. Coach's post-game speech. We'll get a sponsor. I promise. I'm gonna say it over and over until we get one. We'll get a sponsor for this one. Coach, what do you have to say to me and our viewers as we head off for the day?
So I own a data company, and throughout the last 3 years, I've gotten really good at developing algorithms and taking the metrics that matter and using the data to tell me a story. Since we've been doing this podcast, I find myself falling in love with football all over again, but more so from the media side and trying to develop as an analyst. Okay, I've taken about 2 years from the game and just stepping away and not really even consuming it that much. Now I've been able to take my expertise in data science and bring it back into the football world to help me get insights on teams. And what I've been doing is with OpenAI, taking the box scores of games, teams cumulative stats by individual players, and then their team stats as far as first downs, points scored, and then the summary of possessions in a game. And I'm able to feed it a set of prompts, basically, how does this team run the ball? Situationally, how is this team? What are the strong points of their game? Who are the impact players? And these equations that I've developed so far are giving me better insights than I know I could take myself in under a minute, which is the power of artificial intelligence. And so just a lesson just for society is that when we're developing technology, okay, even like analytics in sports, it's like, oh, we have access to all this data. But the information is only as good as your ability to apply it to make informed decisions. And right now, what I'm doing is I'm gathering this data to assist me in understanding what are key ways to identify team strengths, areas of concern, and how teams match up against each other. And I was able to pull really, really valuable information in under 15 minutes for about 10 different teams last night and learn a lot about a lot of the stuff that we're talking and just about the landscape of college football and the NFL as a whole. So what I look to do moving forward is strengthen the algorithm and automate this system and allowing it to be accessible for analysts, podcasters, maybe even sports teams to just run the box score, run the cumulative statistics throughout the season, and just get some insights in regards to who your team is and what you need to do better to win games. I think data is great, but I think we need to break it down into layman's terms and get coaches using data a little more. And I think that can expand our approach to play calling and how you want to construct your team as a whole. And so this is something I'm going to be doing on a weekly basis, and I'll be talking about my progression. But I believe I'm on to something, and it's really exciting.
I tell you, Coach, a couple of things, if you don't mind. First off, it's just phenomenal what you're doing with the whole data stuff and the AI, just everything mixed in one. Absolutely phenomenal. Second, I would say it didn't mean a lot to hear that, this podcast has helped you, come back and fall in love with the game of football. You've done the same thing for me and strengthened it. I've always loved football when I was young, but learning from you every single week and hearing you break down the game, whether it's about the Buffaloes or the unfortunate Dallas Cowboys that we cover every week, it's always so much fun. And honestly, every week we're going to continue to grow and get better at this. We're only 6, 7 episodes in for this thing. And by episode 50, we're gonna be everything mastered, and the format's gonna be great and everything like that. But I will say it's so much fun. You've done an incredible job on and off the podcast with whatever you're doing, Coach. Your fitness journey or just your stuff with hyper speed, and then this new AI stuff you mentioned as well with the data analytics. It's been phenomenal to see, Coach, and you're an inspiration. I look up to you. I hope you know that, and it's an honor to have you as a guest every single week. You push me to be better. You push me to improve my craft every single week, and I'm just so thankful for you. And I appreciate you, Coach, for everything. You're on mute, Coach.
My apologies. Tech guy can't even figure it out with the music. No, I did want to say though, man, I appreciate you. As a coach, you got to lead by example. Whether it's my personal fitness or just setting a standard with my business, my work ethic. I appreciate you, being so willing to learn and creating this platform. So I'm really excited for what the future holds, man. And I'd love to see you work in football. And so anything I could do to facilitate that, but create this platform between a coach and a fan that started off as a podcaster.
Yeah.
It's a very organic process, and so continuing to just develop this and getting better every single week, and I believe that the viewers will be able to see that in regards to our approach to just improving small little things and putting it on display. I believe that is the beauty of the process, which is what sports are all about, and trying to build something and ultimately attain the glory. So let's just keep this thing rolling, man.
Let's keep it going, Coach. And we hope you viewers and listeners out there, if you reached the point of this episode, we appreciate you always for your support. We hope you guys are entertained and also informed about the football world as we continue to do this throughout the season with the Buffaloes, the Cowboys, and the NFL and NCAA football atmosphere as a whole. So thank you guys so much for watching and listening. We appreciate you. Make sure to follow Coach Wilson at Anton G. Wilson. You can follow me at Twitter and Instagram at Nathan_Nguyen24. For Coach, I'm Nate. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great one.